With dozens of movies over more than a decade and more in the works, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has inarguably long since cemented its place as an unstoppable pop culture juggernaut. Of course, no matter how popular the franchise is or how many billions of dollars it racks up in worldwide box office revenue, some of those movies are bound to be better than others. In this video, we are ranking the top 5 worst movies that ever made in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We post new content daily. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe. 5. Iron Man 3. It's probably the single most underrated entry in the entire MCU, but it's a perfect example of what makes these movies work so well. It draws from the comics, with the broad strokes of the plot lifted from Warren Ellis and Adi Granov's Extremis, but blends that story with a film that's focused on developing Tony Stark as a character, thanks largely to the work put by Shane Black. And that's the best thing about it. At this point, we weren't just 3 movies into Iron Man's saga. We were 7 films deep in a cinematic universe dealing with grand-scale threats it had never seen before. Black and Downey explore how the smartest guy in the room deals with living in a world that's becoming something he can't predict. It's a movie about a superhero with an anxiety disorder, and not only does that feel refreshing and interesting, it's a permanent consequence that leads directly to Age of Ultron and Civil War. Plus, not to spoil it for anyone who skipped out the first time around, the twist with the Mandarin is brilliant. 4. THOR. Iron Man 2 might have been the first big step towards fleshing out the Marvel Universe, but Thor was the first time we actually got to see its scope in action. With Thor, we got Asgard in all its glory, complete with a Bifrost made of rainbow lasers, epic battles against the frost giants of Jotunheim, and, perhaps most importantly, those big old Jack Kirby hats that Norse gods apparently love to wear. Thor's humanity and make Chris Hemsworth a little easier for us mere mortals to relate to, which in turn led directly to Loki showing up in the Avengers and turning that movie into a story more about Thor and his brother than anything else. At the same time, this is a movie that never shied away from giving us interdimensional high fantasy, either, and that's what makes it work. 3. Iron Man 2. He's not the world beater that Ultron or the Red Skull, he's not the tragic figure who almost has you on his side that you get with Loki, and he's not the cold, hateful destroyer that Helmut Zemo is, but Justin Hammer is really a great MCU villain. Just the image of Sam Rockwell literally dancing across the stage to present his army of Iron Man drones is endlessly delightful. And that's where it fails to measure up to its predecessor. The inclusion of Whiplash is another evil Tony keeps threatening to steer the story in an unnecessarily complicated direction. And the scene when Stark goes down into his basement with a particle accelerator to somehow build a new element is so goofy that it crosses the line from comic book super science into pure Deus Ex Machina territory. If Incredible Hulk was a stumble, Iron Man 2 was a confident stride towards the MCU, introducing the Black Widow and War Machine into the mix. There's a lot there to like, and even if it's outweighed by the bad stuff, we'll always have Justin Hammer's dance moves. 2. The Incredible Hulk. If you weren't there to see it all come together in real time, it's hard to accurately convey how exciting it was to see Nick Fury show up at the end of Iron Man and hint at the idea of a full-on shared universe of superhero movies. In all honesty, The Incredible Hulk isn't bad, it just happens to be the most forgettable movie in the entire franchise. It's the one nobody ever remembers, which is a real shame when you consider that it does so much right. For one thing, if you're going to make a movie about a nerdy scientist with anger issues so powerful they could level a whole town, getting the guy who starred in Fight Club to play Bruce Banner is a pretty solid move. The filmmakers realized that since it came out only 5 years earlier, audiences didn't need a full-blown origin story to get up to speed. Instead, what we get a revised origin tied into Captain America and the Super Soldier program, which serves as a first stumbling step towards building the full-on shared universe that these movies would eventually inhabit. 1. Thor: The Dark World. Despite a solid cast that features Chris Hemsworth being as charming as ever and the fact that it's based on one of the greatest comic book arcs ever printed, a Star Wars-esque attack on Asgard by spaceships driven by dark elves, the rock monsters from Thor's very first comics appearance getting smashed into a pile of rubble, Thor and Loki teaming up for revenge against the villain that killed their mom, climaxing in a fist fight in which Thor and Malekith are literally punching each other so hard that they land in other dimensions. Unfortunately, none of it is as good as it sounds, especially the part about punching somebody so hard they land in Jotunheim. Instead, there's the constant feeling of wondering if you're missing out on something, and it doesn't really go away when the characters start talking about how they're not sure how things are supposed to work either. The character-defining Walter Simonson run on Thor that introduced Malekith, Curse, and a whole bunch of other stuff that would eventually make it to the big screen. The Dark World never lives up to its promise. Here we end our list. What is your worst MCU movie list? Make sure to comment that below. If you like this video, make sure to like and share with your friends.